What's up, everybody? As you know, Scotty, we're back with another episode of Scotty Talks NBA. This time it's going to be heavy Sixers edition, the official final Sixers preview. I'm here with my co-host James Lewis at UK Philly Unite, myself at Scotty Drown. Make sure to tune in for this one in 30 seconds, guys.
Just looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant dribbling, has to put it up for the buzzer. Banks it in! He banks in the goal! A timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from...
All right, what's up, everybody? As I mentioned earlier, this is another episode of Scotty Talks NBA, presented to you by DSM Media. You can find DSM Media on social media platforms, on Twitter at DSM_media, on TikTok at DSM Media, and on Instagram at DSM.DoSomethingMajor. Make sure, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Ring the bell. It's Red October. I know the Phillies lost last night, but we are still ringing the bell. It is still Red October. Make sure to turn those notifications on for every time DSM Media goes live on the DSM Media YouTube channel. We're trying to work our way up to 1,000 subscribers and go from there. So help us, help DSM grow, and hit that subscribe button, share the shows out, and get everybody involved. That's the goal here. Get the comments flowing, get the narratives from the fans. We want to get everybody involved in the show here. So make sure you're following along. Before we get into the actual meat of the show, which obviously I'm going to get into the Sixers with my man James here, do have to shout out our sponsors over at Gents Barber Lounge. DSM Media is brought to you by Gents Barber Lounge. Check out one of the two great locations in Fishtown and Old City and book your appointment today. Gents owns the craft, and it shows. Rated the #1 barbershop on Yelp in the Philadelphia area. Multiple award-winning barbers and being able to handle any style of cut, adult or kid. Here's a look at some of Gents' work. All right. So make sure if you need a new cut, I know I need one. So I'm going to be hitting up Gents Barber Lounge here soon. But make sure you set your appointment up at gentsbarberlounge.com. And of course, check out our other sponsors over at luxeden.com for all the finest jewelry. You can get up to 25% off at checkout if you use code DSM. Shout out to Luxeden. Good quality jewelry there. But let's get into it, James. How are you doing, my friend? How are we doing today?
I'm not too bad. There is a bit of screaming in the background because the twins are just about to get into the bath. So I'm not being rude if I mute the mic. I just don't want everybody to get annoyed by screaming twins and shouting girls. So, yeah, that's that. It's 6 o'clock, so it's quite a busy time for the household. So, yeah, like I said, I'm not being rude. Other than that, I'm not too bad. Busy day, tiring day, and but yeah, I'm all good. I'm a bit down about sort of the Phillies loss yesterday, and then just seeing the roster cuts as well. I would say I'm mildly annoyed at the roster cuts. Other than that, I'm all good. How are you doing today, Scott? Are you good?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm in the middle of my work day. Got some downtime right now. So, figured we could get some content created here. But I'm with you, man. I'm with you. It's the time of year, too. You know, we're getting into the heavy sports section of the year, at least for myself. And I feel like you're kind of on the same boat. I'm not super into hockey. You are a little bit more into your football, I would say, than I am as well. But American football, NBA, that's my time to shine. That's where I know the most, and that's where I get all my content out. So it's a busy time of year nonetheless, and no apologies needed. If you have to mute anything, just let me know, and we'll work through it. That I mute it too. My dog barks, all types of stuff. So
That's fine.
it is all good, my man. But I'm with you. The Phillies loss was disappointing to say the least. Obviously, that was a nice gem to start from Zach Wheeler and kind of faltered out in the 6th inning. But nonetheless, still Red October. We're still celebrating the Phillies. We're still having a good time, and we'll get back to that on Friday evening. But the Sixers roster cuts. Maybe that's a good place to start before we get into actual projections for the Sixers today and what we think is going to happen throughout this season. You talk about roster cuts. The obvious ones came out this morning, earlier today. Was Isaiah Joe and Charles Bassey. Now, I know Isaiah Joe specifically is, I don't want to say a fan favorite. He is a 13th through 15th guy on a roster on the depth chart, but he was sort of a fan favorite. People really liked his skills, his ability shooting, right? It's something that we have not had an influx in Philly of on the 76ers in general is consistent three-point shooting. And Isaiah Joe certainly provided that. He provided floor spacing. He provided a decent defender. He's lengthy for a guard as well. And you have to waive him. We knew some tough cuts were going to be made. They already cut Trevelyan Queen, who they signed. He was the G League MVP last year, so that was a tough cut. And then Charles Bassey, it was a second-round pick that they brought in maybe a year or so ago, and has a lot of high upside in my opinion as well. He was working out with James Harden this summer, so I was surprised to see that one as well. How do you feel about these cuts overall, James? I know we talked briefly in the DSM group chat just regarding like Korkmaz and sort of that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts there? Just instant thoughts on Isaiah Joe and Charles Bassey being cut from this team.
My main sort of concern is Isaiah Joe. Charles Bassey's decent, but I feel Isaiah Joe was sort of more the player we needed.
Yeah.
And like you said, fan favorite. I love the guy, and we could have released somebody like Furkan Korkmaz, who I'd much prefer releasing. I personally will probably keep Joe over Jaden Springer too. If we're talking down to the final sort of roster cuts, he would be my preference over that. But other than that, there's not really anyone else that you could consider releasing.
Yeah.
It was literally the final sort of 2 or 3 spaces that sorry.
No worries.
I don't know if you can hear it, but all I can hear is my daughter going ba 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 ba. That's my eldest.
I know you're
tired. But my main sort of preference would be to keep Joe and Bassey. I thought he was going to be released. I'm more shocked at the release of Joe than anything else.
Yeah.
I'd much prefer to keep Korkmaz.
And I think
not keep Korkmaz, release Korkmaz.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, and I guess I sort of understand where the Sixers are working from, because like Korkmaz, you invested 3 years, $15 million into him, right? So it makes it a little bit harder to release him. Then you have Jaden Springer, who I agree, Isaiah Joe would be more valuable to this team, quite honestly, than Jaden Springer. At least what we've heard about Jaden Springer. He sounds like a great a great athlete, a great defender out on the perimeter, but we have those already, right? We don't have the prolific three-point shooter like Isaiah Joe has been groomed to be. And that's what ultimately doesn't worry me. I shouldn't say worry. It's just it's a little annoying, like you said, to see Korkmaz still on the team. But I'll take it even a step further. And we talked about this in the DSM group chat earlier a little bit. There's only 14 guys that are on the roster still that I say are locks. They're obviously going with a guy like Charlie Brown Jr. or a Champagnie. One of those guys, I would imagine, are getting selected over Isaiah Joe, because even with Jaden Springer, Korkmaz, so the 14 that I have right now: Maxey, Embiid, Harden, Tobias, PJ, Melton, Daniel House, George Niang, Montrezl Harrell, Matisse Thybulle, Paul Reed, Furkan Korkmaz, Jaden Springer, Shake Milton. That makes 14. Isaiah Joe and Charles Bassey are the only guys that I thought would be the 15th. And specifically Isaiah Joe, I thought he would be the lock at 15. after they got rid of Trevelyan Queen. And where do you go with that 15? Like, what better option is in that 15th roster spot? I know it's not the end of the world either way, but I don't know. It just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. But maybe they're seeing something that we're not in practice from one of these other guys that we're not naming here.
That's got to be what's happening, because from an outsider's point of view, there's nobody you'd select over. There's got to be some sort of insider knowledge of one of these players that's going to fill in the 15th roster spot.
Yeah, something isn't adding up there, right? And I feel like there's something to come of this, with that 15th roster spot. But let's talk about some of the for sures, right? The guys that we know will be on the team in the rotation. And some of the additions this offseason that I want to ask you about specifically. And we can start with PJ Tucker, because I would say that's probably the biggest acquisition, at least once you get to postseason.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts of adding PJ Tucker to the mix with this Philly team? Simply, I know he's toughness, heart, everything he's been able to do. What are your thoughts on PJ Tucker?
I like the guy. I like the addition. I think his defensive prowess is going to improve the team, especially his postseason sort of knowledge as well, because that's one thing we were lacking is only a few of our guys have been deep into the postseason. So we've got sort of the veteran leadership and the knowledge of the postseason with PJ Tucker. And if we were to go up against the Bucks in Eastern Conference Finals, I think he'll be one of the ones that would help us beat them. He's one of the only ones that I could see.
That's a great point.
We don't really have sort of anybody that could stop Giannis, but we've got people that could get in the way of Giannis.
Yeah.
So I think PJ Tucker on that would obviously help on that.
Because that was, I'll be honest with you, James. Last year in the playoffs, that was my biggest worry, is if we ran into the Bucks and had to play against Giannis. No Ben Simmons, right? Ben Simmons was our guy as far as defense, right? We've talked about Ben Simmons. We don't have to talk too much about it. We had a great defender in Ben Simmons that could go head to head with a guy like Giannis on the defensive end. We don't have that now. Now, some people will argue that Joel Embiid can guard Giannis at times. You just don't want to do that in the playoffs specifically. You're not getting Embiid in foul trouble. That puts him at supreme risk to miss playing time. So you just can't do that. So you would ultimately, without PJ Tucker, end up putting Tobias Harris on Giannis. And Tobias has gotten better at defense, but I'm not having Tobias Harris guarding Giannis. No. I have a choice. So it eliminates that. Then taking it even further to your point, the Nets, for instance, right? We're not high on the Nets. I wouldn't go that far, but they still have some talent. They have some dangerous players on their roster.
Oh yeah, of course.
You have PJ Tucker, who went head to head with Kevin Durant in the playoffs when he played for Milwaukee. He was the guy that was on Kevin Durant, strapping up Kevin Durant, frustrating Kevin Durant in that series. They didn't put Giannis on Kevin Durant, probably for similar reasons that we feel we wouldn't put Embiid on Giannis, right?
Yeah.
So it takes that responsibility away from the guys that have to focus on scoring. But then you also add in the fact that he shot 41.5% from three-point line. So the guy spaces the floor on top of it. He's honestly one of the biggest missing pieces that I think we ultimately needed. Obviously, he doesn't add too much in the scoring department, but he shoots the open three and he defends. And that's simply what we need. It's what we've been kind of asking of Matisse Thybulle the last few years, and he isn't following through on the offensive end. Another couple guys I want to ask you about: DeAnthony Melton, Montrezl Harrell, Daniel House. Are any of those guys that you're specifically excited for or have high hopes for this season?
I mean, how can you not be excited to watch DeAnthony Melton?
Yeah,
the guy's an athletic phenom. I love the guy. I think him sort of in the backcourt will also help, especially sort of. Yeah, he'll be first off the bench, really, won't he? Sort of in guard respect. So I think that's a decent pickup. Obviously, Montrezl Harrell, he had a good game in the preseason the other day, so he's going to be a good sort of backup for Embiid. House Jr., I'm not going to lie, I haven't watched much of, so I'm not too sure on how he is and how he plays.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very excited to watch Anthony Melton. I think Philly fans will love him and he'll enjoy playing at Philly.
Yeah.
As long as he plays well, obviously. But no, I think we've had a good sort of off-season pickups.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a good season to watch, and it's going to be sort of it's hard to explain. It's going to be a good one to watch with PJ Tucker and Embiid on the same floor at the same time, on the same team. So
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a nice thing to watch.
Yeah, just kind of the infectiousness of PJ Tucker and the effect he has on the rest of this roster is going to be fun to watch. And to your point about DeAnthony Melton, I mean, he's just an athletic freak. He plays, once again, he's another guy that just plays tough. He's going to get in your face defensively. He's aggressive. He's athletic. And he can shoot the three ball. Once again, it hasn't looked great in the preseason, but he needs to clean that up a little bit.
Yeah.
But 37% from the three-point line last year. Once again, up over 35% is generally what you want to see for a decent to above average three-point shooter. So he's a little bit above that. He's closer to good than average, I would say. And you add the athleticism on top of that. That makes it even better, right? So he's going to be fun. And what I've heard Doc Rivers mention over the past couple of weeks was, giving some time to Matisse and DeAnthony Melton on the floor at the same time because they're such aggressive perimeter defenders. They can really disrupt an offensive flow, get in the passing lanes, get out on the break, dunks, all types of stuff. So I'm excited to see that. Just to give you a little bit of insight about Daniel House, it's not that I've watched a ton of Daniel House ball over the years. I do just remember specifically when James Harden was on the Houston Rockets, he was part of that initial core there with PJ Tucker, Clint Capella, all of those guys. So the only thing I remember about Daniel House is that he will cash out threes. He is a great shooter. He's a spot-up shooter, sharp shooter, and he defends a little bit better than George Niang, I would say. He's a little bit more athletic than George Niang. So those are the two guys that I see kind of competing for rotational minutes is George Niang, Daniel House. So those will be the interesting ones to watch. They have similar similar skill sets, I should say.
Right. Okay.
Shooters. I would say George Niang is the better shooter, but it's really close. But Daniel House, the better defender, better athlete. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out because I think those guys are going to be more of situational pieces.
Right. Yeah.
Rotation.
Understood.
So let's think about some of the key notes just from the Sixers offseason, kind of what the talk has been about, right? Like what we need from this team coming into this season. So we talked about the improved grittiness, the toughness with PJ, Trez, Melton, kind of that dog mentality that we talked about with the Philadelphia Eagles and Nick Sirianni. What were your thoughts as far as like adding just let alone the players' attributes on the court, but just their mentalities versus what you saw against the Miami Heat in the second round of the playoffs last season? Obviously, they bowed out Embiid injury, but they looked disheartening, right? They didn't look like they were into it. They didn't look like they were giving maximum effort. What does adding guys with this type of mentality do for a Sixers team like this that already has Embiid and Harden in your?
Well, the mentality is literally gonna flip and completely change due to we got the mentality of Ben Simmons
out,
who was complete defeatist, completely out. He was out of the game. He just didn't want to know. And we've converted that to guys that want to win. They want to be on the team and contribute and actually progress with the team. So I think mentality-wise, this is going to improve a lot. It's going to have to.
Yeah, it has to.
Yeah, it has to. So yeah, I think it's going to improve going from Simmons to sort of the likes of PJ, Montrez.
Just kind of flipping. It's kind of like a complete 360 when you
think it's completely reverse. Yeah,
and
I think everybody else is going to feed off that sort of energy, aren't they? Everybody was feeding off the situation with Ben Simmons, and then people are going to feed off the positive and gritty energy of the players that have just been introduced.
Absolutely, and they've talked about that highly. As far as Doc Rivers, some of the media members, that have been able to participate outside of Sixers training camp practices so far this season. The talk is that you can hear PJ Tucker through the walls communicating, like yelling. And that's huge when you're talking about defensive connectivity, chemistry. And I think that's exactly what they're trying to build here. They try to bring in chemistry connectors. And I think that's what PJ Tucker can do is, who's going to hold Embiid accountable on this team when Embiid screws up, right? I think that's what he struggled with last year is, yes, Embiid will correct Matisse Thybulle. Embiid will correct Tyrese Maxey. Embiid may even correct, Tobias Harris or James Harden. But who corrects Embiid, the number one player on your team, when he does something wrong or when he's not giving his effort? PJ Tucker is that guy. He's going to call out Harden. Yeah. He's going to call out Embiid, and we need that. We need guys like that will hold others accountable because I just simply, stemming back just to what you said about Ben Simmons, complete lack of accountability on Ben Simmons' part. Embiid has dealt with that over his career as well. He's not, innocent of that. But more so Ben Simmons, the guy that just won't take responsibility for anything wrong that he does. You get that out, and then you bring in guys that will hold other guys accountable. It's a beautiful thing, and it has me very excited, as I know you are as well.
Oh yeah, cool.
It's interesting, but I want to shift back to some of the guys that were here. We talked about obviously the additions, some of the younger guys on the team, but James Harden, what you have seen from him so far, what you're hearing about him being in better shape. What is your outlook for James Harden this year, and what do you want from James Harden this year? What do you think makes the Sixers most successful as far as a version of James Harden?
Obviously, we all want the Rockets, James Harden, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think what's going to happen this season is Harden's going to become more of a feeder than a scorer. I know that's against his nature, but my sort of hot take is Maxey's going to outscore James Harden. It's a hot take, I know. But I think that Harden's going to be more of a feeder. He's going to space the floor, and everybody's going to be expecting sort of Harden to be putting up shots. So there's always going to be an open man. Yeah. So I can see James. I think last season in 21 games he averaged over double-digit assists.
Yeah,
and I think that's what's going to happen again. I can still see James hitting, the 20 plus points per game.
Yeah,
but I can see him being more of a sort of, a mentor to Maxey, who will then improve his game, which will improve his scoring.
Yeah.
So that's my hot take. I think Maxey's going to outscore Harden, and Harden will be, he'll be a mentor, and he'll be showing Maxey sort of.
What it sounds like to me, what you're describing in Harden, it sounds like Chris Paul.
Yeah, in essence.
Is that a good kind of example or comparison in your mind as far as like what you would like to see from Harden? Because in my mind, Chris Paul, what makes him so effective, especially at this point in his career, is that he picks his spots so efficiently.
Yeah.
It's not that we need Harden to average 30 points per game or even 25 points per game. He averaged 22 points per game last year and 10 assists.
Yeah.
That's fine. You can do that. Like, we don't need more than that.
No.
I think it's just a more of an efficiency thing. He needs to shoot better from the 3-point. When you get those open looks, make them. That type of situation. But is Chris Paul a good comparison in your mind as to what you would want to see from James Harden?
Let's say Chris Paul, but who would take them shots?
More
properly?
Shots.
Yeah, who would take more shots?
Paul, though. He could be a better version, basically.
Yeah. Well, I would a better.
It's hard to say
shooting,
that, right?
A better shooting version of Chris Paul. Not
Chris
a better
Paul
ball
does
feeder
things so well. He does things so well. I feel you. It's hard to say that.
Yeah.
It is interesting. I like your points though about Harden, and I can see a world. I mean, you look at the numbers from last year. Like I said, Harden averaged 22, Maxey averaged close to 18. So, and we've seen what Maxey's been doing in the preseason shooting the ball. I mean, it's ridiculous. And he's going to get a bunch of open looks.
And I've got him as one of my most improved players. So I think he's definitely. I think he's going to average at least 8 to 10 points more a game.
So who do you think that this is a good question, I think, for you then, because obviously you have Maxey scoring more points than Harden. Do you think Maxey steps in as the second star to Harden, or to Embiid, I should say, above Harden? Do you think that he takes that leap, or does Harden still, do just enough to kind of stay above him on that platform? Like when we get to
see, that's a tough question. So obviously Embiid's going to be, in my eyes, Embiid's going to be the one.
Yeah.
And I think it's not going to be a case of a 2-3. It's going to be a case of a triangle. So it's going to be top and then two.
I like
two
that.
twos.
I like that analogy. I like that.
That's how I see it anyway.
So after Embiid, it's going to go one of two directions.
Yeah.
Has a better shot. I like that. I like that. And then, of course, you have Tobias as the fourth option.
Mm-hmm.
Which Tobias Harris, I don't want to forget about him. I do want to get your opinion on him. There was a lot of talk, a lot of hope that maybe he would get traded this offseason from the Sixers fans. Let me start there. What were your thoughts on that? Do you think there is a world where Tobias Harris is on this team and playing his role to the most effective output? Like, is he best fitted for this team, or would you have rather seen him traded over the offseason for maybe some better fitting pieces? What are your thoughts there?
See, it's a tough one. I think Harris is very, very underrated.
Yeah. Are you a Tobias Harris guy? I guess
like
that's
Tobias
a good
Harris.
place to
Yeah,
start.
I do like Tobias Harris. He's very underrated. He's just playing on a team that's got one of the best centers in this decade.
Fair.
So he's just not looked at very much. And so when he has a good game, it's Tobias Harris had a good game. When he's had a not so good game or a bad game, it's Tobias Harris had an absolutely shocking game. We need to get rid of him.
Yeah.
And so no, I don't think getting rid of Harris would improve us in any way. Who realistically could we get by trading Tobias Harris? He's so undervalued that his his trade value is not that good. So who are we going to get this better than Tobias Harris?
Because that's the thing. They were talking about, trading him out for like a Harrison Barnes from Sacramento. It's like,
I'd much rather Tobias Harris.
Tobias Harris, like, is that worth it? Especially if Tobias Harris, he's showing signs early on this season. He's willing to take those spot up threes. He's catching and shooting each time that he's open, and that's what we need him to do. That's it. It's not very hard, you know what I mean? But he's better. I will say he's better than that. And I will say, James, just to kind of give you a clue into like my thoughts on this Sixers roster, I am a Tobias Harris guy. I'm not. You're not going to catch me slandering Tobias Harris. I've actually met him.
Nice.
Social media. I met him when I was on my way out for breakfast. In Manayunk near Philly, just this summer. Actually, I got to talk to him in person. He's just such a good dude. I can't slander him. I can't. I can criticize anybody. I can analyze the game, but he's a guy that's done a lot for this city. First of all, like off.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He gives back so much, and he's just such a good dude. He's good vibes. Mm-hmm. And for that reason, I do ultimately really like Tobias Harris. On top of his basketball skill, he is, like you said, one of the more underrated players in the NBA in general. I mean, you talk about him as a power forward. He's a top 10 power forward in the NBA. Like,
he's not bad.
Realize that. You know what I mean? It's not talked about enough. You just talk about his contract. There's a ton of players with inflated contracts in the NBA that aren't that to him, man. It's just the way of the game, right?
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts, Tobias Harris, this season, this fit? So you wouldn't have traded him, which I love to hear that because I agree with you. Mm-hmm. Fit this season, what do you need from Tobias Harris that makes you comfortable with him?
Just hit his shots. Literally, just hit his shots. Being the number 4 option, there's not much expected of you. You just literally hit your shots. Yeah, he's not going to be averaging sort of double-digit rebounds a game.
Right.
I don't think so. So just sit in the corner, hit your corner threes, play NBA 2K23.
Literally. And you can use him. We saw in the postseason he guarded like Pascal Siakam really well against the Lakers. So
his post game's not bad either.
He's a good defender as well. So you can use him in that way. Kind of switch him and PJ Tucker on and off, with whoever they're guarding, whatever the case may be. But I love the idea of Tobias Harris in this offense. Like, especially my only worry with Tobias Harris this offseason was if he wanted to be responsible for more. He's
Right.
not going to get a lot of ball handling responsibilities
No.
with his team. Even when Melton comes off the bench, he's going to be the guard handling the ball. So he's not going to see a lot of those opportunities like off the dribble. A lot of his moves are going to have to be quick decisions, cutting to the basket or shooting a spot up three. So it's a lot more simplified for him, which I think is good for Tobias.
Yeah.
But you never know what a guy is thinking of himself. And if he thinks, because he can do more than that, right? We know that.
Oh, yeah, of course he can.
He can score one-on-one against the best of them. And it's hard for you to not want to do that when you know you can do that, even though he can do it at the same clip as some of the other guys on the roster.
That's sort of the viewpoint where do you think of the team? Do you think of the championship, or do you think of yourself? And I don't think Tobias is the type of guy that will be so self-indulgent that will think of himself before the team and before he get the championship. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so. No, that's a great point. That's a great point. And that speaks to Tobias's character, right? He's a good dude, as we mentioned, and I'm looking forward to seeing his role because I think he can really elevate his play in it. Let's talk about Maxey. I know we kind of glossed over him a little bit with the Harden segment. Tyrese Maxey, right, has this crazy jump from year one to year two. Really, we don't know what he could have been in year one because he just didn't get that much playing time. But year two, he takes the jump. He gets the role because obviously Ben Simmons is out. And he runs away with it, right? Even before Harden gets here, he runs away with that point guard spot. And now he's more of a combo guard, borderline shooting guard playing beside James Harden. In reality, they kind of switch roles there, even though the size matches James Harden there. But Maxey, what are your thoughts as far as what he can do this season? I know you said you think he's going to score more than James Harden, which would obviously get him up over that 20-point per game mark. Thoughts on Maxey this season? All-star. What's his next jump?
I love Tyrese Maxey. I will say I absolutely love Tyrese Maxey. I see him as the answer 2.0. Literally, he is AI 2.0. Has one of the nastiest floaters I've ever seen as well. I love the guy. I love his.
I haven't seen that since AI, man. The floater, the mid-range, none of that.
He enjoys playing the game as well. He's not so stressed. He's not stressed all the time. He's having fun whilst he's playing basketball. He knows how privileged he is. And that's what you kind of need in a team. Yeah. Once you start getting, maybe he will start getting a bit stressed the further into the playoffs we get, and unknown territory for him. But I love his energy. I love his play style. I love the guy. I was going to buy one of his jerseys the other day, but the problem is I got hairy shoulders, so I just look stupid. So I'm gonna get one of his t-shirts, and obviously out of all the people I could have picked, I'll pick Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah.
So you asked what I think of him. One of my favorite players, and absolutely. I'm so glad that he blossomed in the absence of Ben Simmons.
Absolutely. To run away with that was incredible. And I kind of saw it. You saw flashes of it. Like you said, the floater, just the natural English with the ball handling, the speed, the athleticism. You knew something was there with Tyrese Maxey. I just didn't know if I knew he was going to take that jump in his second year. And to your point, just about kind of he's like a ray of sunshine. I think that's what Doc Rivers called him. Said about him when he's at practice. And I was listening to Doc Rivers. He did a podcast with Woj, which I forgot to tell you guys about that in the chat, but definitely check that out if you haven't already. It's about 37 minutes. It's just a sit down with Adrian Wojnarowski from ESPN. And they just talk about the upcoming season. And Doc highlights Tyrese Maxey, kind of what you just said there, as he's only had 2 bad days where in bad days where Tyrese Maxey is kind of down. There's been 2 days out of the 2 seasons that Tyrese Maxey has been with the Sixers where Doc Rivers has found him down and out, either after a game or at practice, whatever the case may be.
Right.
One of those days was literally after Game 6 of the Miami Heat series, where they went home, they lost, and were eliminated from the playoffs. And obviously that was one of his days where he was kind of depressed, ashamed.
I think anybody will be that, wouldn't they?
If he doesn't feel that, that's a little weird, right? So That was interesting to hear that he knows how to keep the positivity. He knows how to keep optimism. He knows how to keep that fight going. And I think that's a huge thing, you kind of hinted at there. Because when these teams, when these players get down, I don't know if you've noticed it before, but like Embiid's head will go down.
Oh yeah.
And it's just bad energy, man. I don't like that stuff. And it is a leader, which that's what Embiid is. He is the number one. That translates to the other team. Then the other team, it's infectious. They start feeling that lack of energy. Maxey is the guy that can keep Embiid up, right? Keep him keep that fight going and let you know when you get into those fourth quarters, you're down 8 points. The game isn't over, right? You still have 12 minutes to go. You can get back into this game in the playoffs and win this game. It's guys like that type of leadership, that type of optimism that I think you need in order to be successful to an extent as a team.
Yeah, agreed.
We mentioned him so much already. The king of Philly himself. He's my favorite athlete in the city of Philadelphia. Quite honestly, I'll even throw this out there about Joel Embiid. I think he is the best athlete in the city of Philadelphia right now. I think he's the best player at his respective sport in the city right now. That includes Bryce Harper, Jalen Hurts, anybody that you would pull from the Eagles, anybody from the Flyers, of course, anybody from the Union. I know they have some really star-studded players in the Union, but there is nobody that matches up to the level of play that Embiid carries night in and night out when he steps on the floor. Bryce Harper, I would say, is probably the closest, from my experience. But baseball is just so different. You can't do that night in and night out. Like 162 games. Embiid, he's there night in, night out. He's going to score 30 points, get 10 rebounds. And he does it in a very, very interesting fashion.
Yeah.
A guy that can shoot from anywhere, 7 foot, 7'1", 7'2", however tall he is, 7 foot. 7-footer that can shoot from anywhere, has fadeaway jump shots like Kobe Bryant, like Michael Jordan. He, watches their game film to mimic their moves. Then on the defensive end, he can do everything as far as a defensive anchor when he puts the effort in. He's in probably the best shape of his career as far as health, conditioning, all of it put together.
Yeah.
What are you thinking for Joel Embiid this year? Is there a way that he can elevate his game to another level? Does he just play the same as, last season? What are your thoughts on Embiid this year? What is your prediction for him as far as where he takes his game to this year?
The thing with Embiid is, can he get any better?
I know.
Can he get any better? So it's not that him staying the same is a bad thing. It's
right.
Just, I don't know how we can get any better.
Him staying the same is the leading scorer in the NBA.
So no, I can't see him improving. I definitely can't see him getting worse. I can still see him being the best center in the NBA.
Yeah.
But one thing that will change differently is starts with M, ends in P. He's going to get MVP. So that's the only thing I can see change. Oh, and he's gonna be I don't want to keep saying it on stream. He's gonna be finals MVP. Yeah.
I knew it was coming. Hey, the sky's the limit for Joel Embiid. It's as simple as that.
100%, yeah.
What I would say, James, as far as what Embiid can improve, right? It's really hard to improve on what he's been doing, but what I think he can ultimately improve on is just his spots. Once again, efficiency. Right. That's it. That's at this point, when you're the leading scorer in the NBA, you can shoot the 3-ball, you can shoot the mid-range, you can post up, you have all the moves in the post, down low, your defensive anchor. The next step for me is efficiency. Getting those shooting percentages up, taking better shots, finding better shots within the offense, and ultimately getting other guys involved as well. I think keeping Tyrese Maxey in rhythm throughout a game, not letting him get 20 points in the first half and then going completely away from him in the second half. Same with James Harden. If these guys are hot those nights, just recognizing that as well. And one thing I've talked about over the last year, James, because we've done the MVP seasons where Joel Embiid averages, close to 30 points. He did average 30 points last year.
Yep.
And it kind of gives us the same result. And
yeah,
it's not that I don't think Embiid won't win the MVP this year. I just don't think his numbers. I don't know if he's going to be the leading scorer in the NBA this year, right? Like, I don't know if that's in the cards this year. He can. I just don't know if it's necessary.
Oh, it's definitely not necessary, but yeah, like he can, but it's not necessary.
And he can. And so I'm wondering if there is a world where Joel Embiid averages 25 points, 10 to 11 rebounds, but then really kicks it up a notch on the defensive end. Mm-hmm. And if that makes for a better, not a better Embiid, but a better Sixers team.
Yeah.
That is what I'm thinking here. And it makes me, I think I mentioned this to you on our last episode. Defensive Player of the Year is on my mind for Joel Embiid as well, and kind of sufficing within that role. But MVP, man, it also feels like it's his time. Like, God, give it to him. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it's more out of quiet desperation that I want MVP, not that I wholeheartedly think he's going to get it. I think it's more out of quiet desperation that he deserves it.
Yeah, he gets it because he's not talking about it. He's not going for it. And I know you mentioned that in the last episode as well, is you don't think he's going to be as vocal about wanting that award or wanting to be that this year. It's going to be more about winning. And that's something I've noticed from the early press conferences from Embiid. It's not a lot of he still has his humor to a sense, but it's not the same troll Joel Embiid, right? Like where he's laughing around, telling jokes, clowning people. And I think that's a sign of maturity in a sense. It's fun when he does that stuff, but it is a sign of maturity nonetheless when he's kind of just keeping it as simple as he just wants to win games. He wants to win the championship and stay healthy, which I think that should ultimately be the goal. Let me ask you this, just as far as projections, because we're going on 45 minutes here. I know we said we wouldn't go as long as last time. I promise. Let's go overall projections for the team. I know what your end goal is already, but we can discuss that a little bit further. You don't necessarily have to say it. Maybe it's karma, but I'm going to ask you just a few questions regarding the projections of this Sixers team.
Okay.
If you want to give me a yes or no, or maybe if you disagree, thoughts, whatever the case may be on each statement here, but I'll start from the top. So, top 5 offensive team in the NBA. Do you think they're a top 5 offensive team in the NBA?
Yes. I think that.
Harden, Tyrese, Joel, that's enough for top 5. There's not many trios, or even
I was about to say,
not many trios better.
There's not. Sorry, I'm kind of. I don't think there is. Let me just check my notes.
No worries. Yeah, no, it's an interesting question because top 5 offensive team. I'm thinking, the Bucks, the Golden State Warriors.
That's what I was about to say. Golden State Warriors.
Boston Celtics, maybe.
Yeah, I'd put them up there. I would. Yeah, I'll probably have us. I'd have us in top 5. I would.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you have to in order to be where they want to be. I think they have to be a top 5 offensive team. How about a top 10 defensive team? Do you think that they have that in the cards? Adding PJ Tucker, if Joel Embiid can take a next step. You also have Matisse Thybulle. D'Anthony Melton plays some solid defense. But you do have James Harden, who is a renowned, not great defender. Tyrese Maxey a little undersized, but I think he can turn into a good defender nonetheless.
Yeah, I can. I think within the top 5s and the top 10s, we're sort of in the middle of them discussions. And everyone. So top 5 offense, top 5, top 10 defense, and then sort of top 5 in the league. We're sort of in the middle of all of these discussions.
Yeah.
But we're going to be higher than the first team from offense to.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
The first team on offense may not be the Sixers, but we will be higher on offense. We'll be higher on defense than they are on defense. Yeah. Like
it's the best all-round team. One of the best all-round teams, I think.
Absolutely. So obviously that leads to about 50 to 55 wins, I would presume.
Yeah.
1 to 3 seed in the East. I
Yep.
believe you have them as a 1 to 3 seed. And you have them as the 2 or 1?
Yeah, I've got them as 2. I've got Bucks
2,
as 1.
behind the Bucks.
Then, yeah.
Behind the Bucks and before the Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, second best team in the East. You already said that. MVP candidates, you think that's going to be Embiid? Is there any thought of James Harden returning to that level? Is there any chance of that?
It's too hard to say for now. I don't know how Doc's going to approach the league straight away. And preseason's completely different to the start of the regular season.
Absolutely.
I really want to see how Doc sort of coaches and approaches the team. If he's going to make sort of Harden a focal point of the offense. Of course, he's going to be a focal point of the offense.
Yeah, but how much?
Yeah, how important is Harden going to be, sort of scoring wise? So I suppose MVP is sort of regarded to the previous year, not previous years, isn't it? So
yeah,
last year he didn't. He had a good season, but for Harden standards, it weren't great.
Right.
Most valuable player. If he gets us,
hard.
Yeah. If he's averaging 30 points per game, I can't see why not.
Right.
But I don't think he's gonna be. But if he does that, I can't see why he won't be in a conversation about it.
And it makes you wonder, if Harden gets off to a hot start, do you ride that?
You keep feeding the hot hand, don't you?
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting to have that option, right?
Yeah, we haven't had this option in a long time.
Exactly. So Maxey, right? I know you mentioned him, most improved player of the year, all-star. Can he be an all-star this year?
I think he's definitely going to be in an all-NBA team. I just don't know which one. I don't know if he's going to be an all-star. Yes, I'm going to say yeah. I think so. But I don't want to sound like to the sort of Sixers fans that's listening. I don't want to sound like I'm just riding this out of bias. I just generally think we're that good of a team this year.
Yeah. And when you look at it, Tyrese Maxey, I feel, could have a similar jump. I won't say the same jump as Darius Garland, but can have a similar jump to what Darius Garland did at last season, and ultimately resulted in Darius Garland on the All-Star team. Let me just pull up his numbers from last season just to get a solid comparison there for you. But
I can't see why it won't happen.
That's ultimately what I'm eyeing. And look at Darius Garland's numbers from last year. So 21.7 points per game. I think Maxey can get up above that, quite honestly.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah.
38% from 3. Maxey shot above that last season. 8.6 assists per game. So that's kind of the deviator there. Yeah. What separates them, which I don't know. I don't think Maxey's going to get up to 8 assists, quite honestly.
No, I don't think so either.
That's kind of the difference there. But I look at Garland as a guy, like, if he can make that jump and make the All-Star team, why can't Tyrese?
That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, I think he'll be able to, and I think a lot of people from sort of outside the Sixers will be not saying it's a definite, but they'll be saying it's a possibility. It's in the realm of possibility that Maxey would do it.
Yeah.
So again, it's not the biggest bias.
That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. Coach of the year. Now, I don't mean coach of the year. I shouldn't phrase it like that, because there's part of me that thinks Doc Rivers has a shot at getting coach of the year, quite honestly. I know this may go against a lot of Sixers fans' beliefs, but I think he has a good shot with the talent on this roster and what he may be able to do with what he's put together here. Doc Rivers, what are your thoughts on him? Like, is he on the hot seat for you? Because I know for a lot of Sixers fans, he is.
I wouldn't say hot seat. I just, I'm not big on him, but I don't dislike him.
Yeah.
Can
you win a championship with Doc Rivers as the head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers?
Yeah, I think you can. With what he's got on the roster, I think pretty much anybody could win with what they got on the roster. I don't think he's in the hot seat. I wouldn't be disappointed if he left, but he's not in the hot seat for me.
Don't want him out, but if he left, not the end of the world. I think that's a good way to put it. That's kind of where I'm at. But I think, like you said, with this roster, even if Doc was just like an above average coach, which he may or may not be, can probably, get you up to an excellent level of coaching, right? Like if you're playing on all cylinders, then he's going to look a lot better. So let me just give you my 3 goals for this season for the Sixers. Obviously win a championship. And I know we agree there, and I know you believe that they can and will win the championship this year. And I think they can and could win the championship.
Yeah, I know.
Nonetheless, I obviously have the Bucks winning, but I can see the Sixers. They can beat the Bucks. It's not that I don't think they can. I just need to see it to believe it. My next goal is to simply escape the second round.
Yeah.
I would love to see some Eastern Conference Finals action for the Sixers this year. And then my last goal is to keep Harden and Embiid healthy throughout the regular season. That way they're ready to go for the postseason. So I don't know, do you have any similar goals aside from winning a championship? What do you want to see from the Sixers this year? What are your hopes that they can get accomplished outside of the championship? Obviously, that's what we all want.
So I would like us to reach the Eastern Conference Finals. I'd like us to have more than one All-Star on our team.
I like that.
And I'd like us to keep Harden getting to sign a new contract.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
So that's sort of my main 3.
Extend Harden.
And I'd like us to go get Isaiah Joe back, for Christ's sake. I do not. Sorry, it's completely,
man.
It's completely different. But I can just see him disappointing us on a different team and just lighting us up. But yeah, anyway, so that's my main 3.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah,
it's gonna happen. Nonetheless. Okay, so last thing I want to get from you, it can't all be, sunshine and gold here in Philadelphia. What are your concerns about the Sixers going into this season? What do you think are some things that could just totally not derail? I shouldn't say that. I don't think they're going to fall out of the playoffs or anything. But what are some concerns you have just as far as the Sixers, the skill sets that they're putting on the floor? I know some of mine, pure shooting, high volume shooting. That's kind of my concern there. And then an athletic, exclusive, legitimate 3. So a small forward. Don't really have that, right? PJ Tucker's going to start at the small forward. Tobias can play it a little bit. You'll mix Matisse in there, but there's no legitimate small forward there.
Yeah.
That's one of my concerns. And Doc Rivers, he is, while I say there's upside for Doc Rivers, there is a downside of Doc Rivers. He is a concern nonetheless. What are your thoughts there?
So one of my main concerns is keeping Embiid healthy. Sort of load manage Embiid, because if we lost Embiid in the playoffs, we do have a front court, but we've got no dominant sort of people at the front court. In respect to your pure small forward, I'm real happy seeing Matisse's progress, especially staying after the games and just knocking down them 3 points. Decent 3-and-D player. So I think if given a shot, Matisse will fill in that role personally. And Doc Rivers is another concern of mine. But I can't really think of any other major concerns. Again, we're not absolutely amazing at everything, but we're great at sort of everything. So
very well balanced.
We're a well-balanced team. I'd like us to be a dominant offensive team again. That's sort of my main concerns is load management for Embiid. And Doc Rivers. Yeah,
that's the Embiid one is big for me as well. Embiid and James Harden. I think you have to keep both of them healthy going into the playoffs. If you just want to see what your team looks like, right? Like that's been the biggest disappointment the last 2 seasons is we get to the playoffs. We have MVP Embiid throughout the season. You get to the playoffs, and then, of course, we have him throughout that first series against Toronto. He dominates. We obviously get the series win. Siakam breaks his face, right?
Yeah.
And we lose Embiid for the first 2 games of that Miami series, and then he doesn't look the same, obviously, when he comes back with a broken face and torn ligament in his thumb.
Mm-hmm.
And then the year before that, I think he had like a partially torn MCL in his knee playing through that against the Hawks. So, like, each year through these MVP, campaigns that Embiid has put on, we get to the playoffs, we get, deeper in the playoffs, and he's beat up, he's worn down, and quite honestly, just not the same player. And I want to see what that looks like in the playoffs. I want to see Embiid at his best in the playoffs. I want to see Harden that way. I want to see Maxey that way. So I really want to see these guys stay healthy this year. That would probably be my number one goal. Regular season. I think the wins will come. I don't think you have to go out there and pick each game and be like, we got to win this one, that one. I think you just go out there, you play, and they're going to win enough games to get a top 4 seed in the East.
Yeah.
And with that being said, the focus just needs to be on, obviously ironing out chemistry. You can't be scared of injuries, I would say, but you got to be smart at the end of the day and load manage. I would load manage both of these guys to keep them healthy, quite honestly. Yeah. And even PJ Tucker, you don't have to have him. He's 37 years old. You don't have to have PJ Tucker out there going all out against the Charlotte Hornets. You know what I mean? Like,
okay.
Whatever bottom tier team you want to mention, you don't need PJ Tucker, going out there playing his hardest against those guys. So keeping him healthy even for the playoffs as well. It's going to be a fun season, James. I don't know about you. I'm getting like really excited. I know next Tuesday we have the Boston Celtics matchup. So that'll be the opener of the season for us. I believe that's the 18th. So I'm excited to see what they look like opening night. I know they're going to want to come out and snag that one just to prove a point. But same with Boston. They're fighting through some things with Ime Udoka losing him. So they're going to want to get through that, right? They have their own drama that they're fighting through there. It's going to be a heck of a season, man.
I'm really, really looking forward to it. It's one of the most excited seasons I've ever had in recent memory.
Absolutely.
Having Harden for a full season.
Oh my God.
Seeing the progression of Tyrese Maxey and then Embiid doing Embiid things. It's going to be a good season to watch.
It's going to be fun, man. And, we talked about all the additions. We've never had a DeAnthony Melton on this team before, right? Like a young, athletic guy that can come off the bench and just make some noise. It's so exciting to see the pieces that they have, the mentalities. There's going to be games this year where Montrezl Harrell, it'll be a game, a load management game for Embiid. Embiid will be out that night. Montrezl Harrell is going to take over a game, right, working with James Harden. This is the stuff that I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see. Seriously,
it'd
be nice to see Montrezl Harrell having a 20-plus point game, double rebounds. Getting Harden throwing hoops, you know what I mean?
It plays hard enough, man. It plays hard enough. And the fun thing about next week is we'll get out of this prediction phase.
Yeah, and it'll be
now
discussing
we'll be able to recap. And that's going to be the best part, Jace, because I know it's not my favorite. I won't say it's my least favorite time of year, but I'm just not a fan of, talking without seeing results and talking about hypotheticals, right? I just want to see it play out and then analyze it from that standpoint. So this is probably my least favorite time of the basketball season, I guess I would say, is the preemptive stage of predictions and projections. None of it means anything at the end of the day. None of it means anything. They have to go out there and play each and every team. So it's going to be fun, but I'm looking forward to next week when we get to ultimately we'll do the Sixers pregame, so hopefully we can get you on for that. I know me and Dylan will be doing that as well. So if you want to hop on with us there before the Boston game kicks off. And then the day after, we will get together next Wednesday or Thursday, whichever one works for us. But we'll get together, recap that game, and we'll get some real thoughts going and some real content flowing here. It's hard to build the content at this time of year. I'll be honest, just kind of talking hypotheticals. It gets kind of redundant at a certain point, right?
And that's the thing. It gets redundant, but it creates so many different sort of discussion topics because like Richie from the Atlantic crossover, me and his predictions are so different. Mine and yours are different, but mine and Richie's is completely different. So we get quite a nice sort of discussion on that. And then it's nice to start proving him wrong at the beginning of the season.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
we'll keep our eyes on it too here. So we'll keep our eyes on it. But you're right. Ours weren't too different. We didn't have too many crazy picks there, but we'll keep track of that as well. It is interesting, the other side of it, James. We're going to get to learn about each other throughout this season as well. Kind of how I view the game, how you view the game, and we'll be able to, kind of talk in that way and discuss from that perspective as well. Because quite honestly, me and you may see the game differently, and it creates different ideas within each of us. And I'm looking forward to that as well. Just kind of, you'll be able to let me know when I'm kind of, going off the deep end and overreacting, because there will be times when the Sixers blow a game to the Detroit Pistons or the Houston Rockets this year, and we'll be like, what the hell's going on? Doc's got to go. Tobias got to go in the trade block. It's going to happen. It happens every season, every sport in Philadelphia. So it's coming. But James, thank you once again for joining me today. If you want, really quick, just shout out where you got the Atlanta crossover pod going on. I know you record every week. If you just want to let my viewers know where they can find you on that pod.
Yeah, of course. So we're called the Atlantic crossover. It's 3-bit Brits talking, sort of making out that we know what's going on with US sports. But you'll be able to find us at Twitter at TA crossover. That's capital TAC Rover. But and Facebook, the Atlantic crossover, Instagram, the Atlantic crossover. Basically, on all forms of social media is the Atlantic crossover bar the Twitter handle that's different.
And that's right. James covers all of the sports spectrum worldwide on that show, but specifically the 4 big sports here in America, those being the MLB, the NFL, NBA, and NHL. So definitely check out their Atlanta crossover pod on Twitter, as James mentioned there, TA crossover. And check out the content. These guys are getting deep into it. I know me and your co-host, I think it's Richie.
Yeah.
We've been having some deep combos in Twitter. I'm having fun with him as well. So we're getting you guys all involved in DSM and having fun. And it's going to be a fun season all around, man. We're going to keep going and keep building. But make sure you guys, if you haven't already, follow my co-host here at UK Phila Unite. That's James Lewis on Twitter. And follow myself at Scotty Drown on Twitter and across all social media platforms. If you don't already follow DSM Media, the tags are actually up at the top of the screen there. At DSM_media for Twitter, at DSM Media TikTok, at DSM.DoSomethingMajor for Instagram. For myself, for James, for DSM Media, thank you guys for tuning in today. And we will catch you we will catch you before the Sixers season opener against the Boston Celtics next Tuesday on October 18th. And we look forward to chatting with you guys. Go Sixers, James. Let's get it. It's almost here.
We got it. Come on.
Have a good one, everybody. Go Sixers. Philly Unite.